We meet 2 days a month. We start each day with a morning meeting at the school that I'm housed out of. And then we go out and do our team days. We go out into teams of 3 of us or 4 of us. So generally our teams, we like to have assistive, or we like to have occupational therapists, SLPs, and teachers. But since COVID hit, we haven't been able to have teachers as much on our team. Part of it is we don't have subs for them, but then also part of it, some of them don't have paras, so they don't feel like they can walk away. So we don't have as many teachers on our team as we used to, but we have more OTs and SLPs. So that's kind of the dynamic of our team. I make up a schedule for our team days before school starts every year. I look at they were talking about yesterday, like SEPs, ACT testing, all those things, schedule around all those things. But that way, when the team comes in the fall, they know what 2 days a month they're released from their regular caseload, and they're able to come just spend the whole day doing assistive technology. Okay, so we're gonna kind of talk about the start to finish process that we go through from the time that we get a referral through the evaluation, introducing technology to the student, and then following up with the student and doing maintenance. So we're going to go through that whole process in regards to a student, and then we'll talk about equipment and a few other things. So I use a lot of databases, and like I said, I've done it for about 8 years, and there's a lot of trial and error. A lot of things took a lot more time than they do now. So that's one of the things I want to share is I feel like I've kind of streamlined a lot of the things, which makes saves a lot of time. So when I receive a referral, so we request school teams to submit a referral, a copy of the IEP, and a permission to test, or a copy of the 504. When I get all of those documents, I enter all of that information into this spreadsheet that I keep for all of my new referrals. So I put down here the student's name, what school they're at, who's the contact person, when did I get the referral. And in our district, I do have additional support from another team member who has a little more time to help me. And she does what's called a preliminary assessment, and I'll go over that in more detail in a minute. But so we both share this document, and so she'll write on here when she goes out and does the preliminary. And her name's Janelyn. So right here, this return from Janelyn. So once she's done her preliminary part of it, then she puts that date in, and then that lets me know all of that's been done. Now I can schedule the evaluation. So when I'm getting ready to schedule team days, I'll come in here and say, okay, what preliminaries are done? And then I get them on the agenda for the next team day. And then I like to keep track of how many, if it's a writing referral or a communication referral in that second to last column. Just that way at the end, I can kind of see how many referrals we have based on what needs the kids have. Feel free to stop me if you guys have questions about anything along the way. I think we'll have plenty of time. Okay, so like I said, we have a preliminary assessment that we do. The preliminary assessment involves Janelyn, the gal that works with me the most, to go out. She does an observation of the student. She'll review their file, so look at testing, things like that. And then she also chats with the file holder, whoever made the referral for us, and kind of asks a few more questions, more information than that was on their referral. So what are your expectations? Like, do you have ideas? Like, did you hear about something? You know that you want this, so we kind of can have a heads up before we go into our evaluation meeting. And these are the forms that she fills out while she's doing that preliminary. And then these go in the student's file, and we reference them as we're doing the evaluation. So it's a little bit small. So on here we have like the diagnosis, the background information. So maybe they're like, oh, they're using an iPad in private speech, or tried voice typing and that's worked in the past. So some background information. That's teacher expectation. So what is the teacher hoping to get out of it? Data gathered through observation. So she'll observe the student and kind of get some preliminary information that helps us kind of know what type of evaluation we're walking into, and then also what equipment to take. There's a few pages here. Oh, it doesn't look like they're loading. On this page of her preliminary paperwork, she will make recommendations of what she thinks would be a good fit for this student. And these are just things we're going to consider in our evaluation with the team. So she'll mark on here over like on the communication files or column, she can do dynamic display, voice output devices, single cell devices, things like that. If it's a student who has reading and writing concerns, then she'll like maybe do word prediction, speech to text. And so she'll just make recommendations. So I look at this form when I'm getting ready to send the team out to do the evaluation at that school. It kind of gives me an idea of what to send with the team that day. These aren't loading, but the rest of this is this page kind of talks about all the testing and their testing scores. So their psychological testing, hearing, vision, just to make sure we kind of have all that basic information. There is one sheet on here that talks about what's been tried. It's okay, this one. So on this one, it's what technology has already been used. So say a student's using picture symbols at school, she'll mark that on here so we kind of know what's already being done. And then once that preliminary is done, then I will go ahead and schedule that team an evaluation for our next team day, or when we can fit them in a schedule. And then when we go out, the team goes out in groups of 4, like I said, and runs an evaluation. Okay. So on the team day, we show up at the school that I work at. We have a morning meeting, and we do some training. And this is an example of what my agenda will look like for the day. So when the team shows up, they'll have this agenda. It tells them where they're going, what they're doing, and whatnot. I opened all these, so they would have been loaded, but they're still slow. So yeah, this is an example of our agenda and a schedule for a team day. So we start with something called quiet leadership, which is Jana Lynn, the other gal that works with me. She helps with this, and she just kind of gives, it's kind of stuff similar to like what Christian talked about this morning. It's kind of like a morale booster, kind of helps us focus like our mission and what we're doing, kind of helps us with like leadership skills, some things like that. And then we do success stories. This is only the last couple of months that we've been doing these success stories, but it's been really fun to do it. And like they mentioned yesterday, once we start like telling these stories, it kind of makes us more observant of looking for stories and stuff. So that's kind of nice. It's like, oh, I'm going to remember to tell my staff this or things like that. We'll do training on new equipment, new technology that comes out if needed. Sometimes at the beginning of the year, we'll review the evaluation process or follow-up process, things like that. So just whatever needs to be talked about. And then on the bottom, when it shows up, it will kind of tell you, it shows you how I have the team schedule. Okay, here it comes. So we just label our teams, team A, team B, team C, team D. We used to keep our teams kind of grouped together as the same 3 people, same OT, SLP, and teacher all of the time, and keep them in the same geographical regions. But I've kind of split that, and now I kind of like rearrange my team members all the time, and I send them different places. And I like it because I feel like my team members kind of cross-train each other. And so that helps like somebody observe somebody else who does one part of it well and stuff like that. So I actually like mixing up the team members. So just an example. So we have our morning meeting and then say they're going to go to an eval at 9:30, 11, and then they have follow-ups in the afternoon for this particular team. And I just write down the school, the student's name, the little C in the dash is the contact person. That's just, I do a lot of abbreviations, but so that way when the team gets to the school, they know who to contact. Usually it's the teacher and either an OT or an SLP, depending on the referral type. And then where I put take and consider, that's kind of based off that preliminary information that Jana Lynn gathered for us, saying, you know, I think this is a kid who needs an iPad with dynamic display. So I'll have all that equipment pulled and ready to go for that student so they can take it out on those evaluations and kind of show it to the teams out there. And then I just have something for every team similar to this. So that's kind of what our team days look like. And then at the end of the day, and then at the end of the day, we just kind of like gather files and equipment from each other. But I try not to have my team do anything outside of team days. So our team days are really, really busy, but because they have full caseloads doing other things the rest of the time, I try not to do anything else any other days besides team days. Okay, so when a team shows up to a school to run an evaluation on a student, this is our evaluation document that we use, or our template that we use. And I just keep all these forms in Google Drive, so the team has access to everything all the time. So we just have a folder with these templates in it, so they just go in and make a copy of the template and then fill it out on each kid. So here's our evaluation form. So just basic information at the top, participants, the referral concern. So kind of whatever our referral says, you know, needs help with reading and writing, or students nonverbal, but feel they can say a lot more if they had access to technology. And then background information. Has the student used technology before? Have you used PECs? Have you used picture symbols? Have you used like writing supports, things like that? Did it help? Did it not help? Then we go into the educational demands and IEP goals to be supported. And I do try and follow the SET process. If you've been around for a minute, we try and follow the SET process. Talking about the student, the educational demands. And after we kind of know what the needs are, we'll kind of brainstorm technology. Sometimes this is suggestions by the IEP team. Sometimes it's suggestions from us or other related service providers. So we'll kind of list all of the options. And then we decide which one we feel is the best option for the student and their needs. So under summary of evaluation, we just write what we're going to use. And then this implementation plan, I've only had in here for about a year, but I think it's helpful. These meetings are long sometimes, and so I think you talk about a lot of information, you decide on a piece of technology, you give it to them, and then they're kind of left at their own, you know, devices. And that's kind of a hard, I think that's where our biggest breakdown is implementation. School implementation is our biggest struggle. So we try and help them come up with an implementation plan, like, okay, who's going to do it? Where are you going to do it? And what are you going to do it for? And kind of help them kind of process all of those things. So I feel like that's been helpful. So we do the implementation plan, and then we kind of talk about when we're going to follow up. For us, if it's an evaluation and we put equipment or technology in place, we usually do like a month and a half, 2 month follow up. So we usually try and follow up pretty quick because it's new to them. And then this is something I've learned is very valuable as somebody managing the team. And I put this on all my reports, is where's the kid gonna go next year? Because I probably have 300 kids on caseload for equipment and like 120 kids on caseload for just read and write. And trying to figure out where they're at school in the fall is like a huge challenge, because some people don't respond to emails to tell me where they're going to go to school. Some kids move over the summer, you know, so there's a lot of changes. Some of our junior highs have 9th grade, some of them don't have 9th grade, some have 6th grade, some don't, you know, so, and it's not, so anyways, it's kind of hard to keep track of where all the kids are. So I always ask where the kid's going to be next year, and I put that in my database that I'll show you. The only other thing that we do at an evaluation that's not on the report is we invite the student into the meeting at the very end if they didn't join us. So if we have a student who's has a higher cognition and they can be it's, you know, helpful in the meeting, then we have them join the meeting and, you know, voice their opinion. But if it's a preschooler and they're severely disabled, we don't have them join our meeting. But we often will bring them in at the end of the meeting and kind of show them the technology, see how they respond to it, some things like that. That way mom and dad, teachers and stuff, we can kind of introduce it then and kind of demonstrate how to use it with the kiddos. It's not very much, it's just an introduction. And then that wraps up our evaluations. Shana, yeah.
When you're doing your evaluation, you're not doing an observation, it's just basically a meeting that everybody's sitting in.
Yeah, so there's different teams in the state do their evaluations different. I think Jody Lynn Beck does, like, she has an evaluation kit that she'll take out, at least she has in the past. She'll take out a kit and try different equipment with the students. And I think that's a great approach. We kind of go just more with a conversation, like what are the students' needs? What are they able to do? What are they not able to do? What do you think? And then we show them a few options of technology and like, what do you think? Like, how do you think they'll respond to this? I feel like there's not like standard assessments for assistive technology. And a lot of times with our AAC users, I don't know that we would get responses like their, you know, care staff and their teachers and things like that. So yeah, so we take a few options to kind of demo, but usually it's more of just a conversation. And then we just start from there and just adjust as needed and stuff. But yeah. So if possible, we try and have equipment there that we think they'll need. If we don't have something there, then I'll follow up and take the equipment out at a later time. But if we have the equipment that we decide to use there with us, we'll do training on that equipment with the school team and parents if the parents are going to be using it at the end of the evaluation meetings, if possible, while everybody's there, it's fresh on their mind. Kind of show them how the technology works. And maybe we took out a GoTalk, and it seems like maybe an iPad with dynamic display would be better. Then usually we have our own, a lot of our team has their own iPad, so we can demonstrate it. But if that doesn't happen, then I'll take out the equipment usually the next week and then do the training in person and things like that. So if we're not doing evaluations, we're going to be doing follow-ups on our team days. So like I said, if it's a new eval, we usually follow up within about a month, 2 months. But as quick as we can, we usually follow up. If it's not a new evaluation student, I try and follow up on my kids at least once a year. So if a student's had an iPad for 4 years, their teachers know how to use it, they're successful users, I try and touch base with them once a year, which isn't a lot, but it's kind of about as much as we can do with how many team days we have. If we have students who move into new placements in the fall, we'll do more follow-ups with them in the fall. But we kind of just follow up as needed for the most part. And this is our follow-up template. So we write reports on every time we see a student, so either the eval or the follow-up, and then we have in my Google Drive, I have a folder full of student folders, so all of my students have a folder in Google Drive, so all the team can access all of that information. And then we do have a hard copy file still. So these reports all go into their digital and their hard copy files. So this is our follow-up report. Basic information. Who did we talk to? What equipment do they have? And then double checking it's marked on the IEP. Our district made some changes in regards to how we document on the IEP. So we just kind of double check with our district that that the IEP is accurate. And then we talk about when is the equipment being used, where is it being used, because a lot of times like we'll go in and we'll like, how's it going? And they're like, oh, it's great. It's like, okay, I can see it over there on the shelf and there's dust on it. Like I know it's not been used, or the iPad's dead, or they can't find it, or something like that. So rather than just kind of being casual, I try and kind of really specifically ask questions like, how often are you using it? Is it like daily, weekly? What are you using it for? It's only used in speech, or it's used only in resource, or the student uses it all day. So we try and get some specifics. A lot of times we'll ask them, could you show us how they're using it? I feel like that's a real way to have accountability for school teams sometimes. They don't always like that, but it's nice to be like, oh, to show us, but let's see what's on the bottom of this. So the bottom of this talks when and where are they using it? Are there any concerns that we need to talk about? And then do you feel like the technology is helping? Other comments or information, we talk about when we're going to follow up next. Sometimes we'll just pick up the equipment at the end of the year, or it's like, okay, we're making changes, we'll be back in a month. And where the student going next year is also on this one again. So after we have a team day, there's usually 20 to 35 reports from all the follow-ups and evaluations. So what I do the next day is I print all the reports, read all the reports, and figure out what I need to do. So some of the evaluations maybe didn't have the right equipment they decided on. So then I'll plan to go to those schools the next week, deliver the equipment, and provide training, put all of the reports in the files, and then I will update my follow-up database. So this is the database I use the most, and I kind of live by this. And this has been an evolution and process for a long time, but I really like the way it's working now. So this spreadsheet kind of shows when did we see the students? So that first column on the left, when did we see the kids? So I usually, if we drop off the equipment in the fall, I'll just write dropped off the equipment, but then I put the dates of when we saw them. So if I have a parent or a teacher call, I can quickly just look at this and I'll be like, oh, we dropped off the equipment in the fall and then we saw them in October, and it's like, and we're scheduled to go back at this time. So I like the quick reference for this. So just trying to make it bigger, but so the first column is when did we see the student? The second column is when do we need to go back? So when I look at my follow-up reports from the team, and the follow-up at the bottom of that report says, look, we're trying something new, I think we need to go back in a month. Then in that second column, I'll put when we need to do a follow-up. Or if they don't need it, I'll put per request or equipment pickup. Then school information, student, the contact people, what equipment is out, and then also where are they going next year is in this database. And then I have one, I don't have an example of this one, but I have one that's another database that's the same, but is just my read and write students. I decided to split them this year. So I have two. But. Okay, so that is the databases I use the most is that evaluation database, the follow-up database. We talked about the templates that we use for the reports. The other thing that has saved me a ton of time is doing email templates. So rather than writing an email, I just copy and paste a lot of these emails. So I'll just kind of show them to you briefly, but this has saved me a ton of time. One thing I've learned too with emails is I used to write emails like a template, and I would have just a blank for the student's name, and I fill the student's name in, but then I'd have a blank for the equipment, things like that. I've decided I took out the equipment part of it, so it's a little bit more generic. It's like, okay, if it's your student, hopefully you know what equipment they have, but also it saves me time of filling in all of the different equipment and stuff. Maybe I have too many tabs open. While this is loaded, is there anything that you guys came in here hoping to talk about, or any questions you had on your mind, maybe like walking in, or anything specific you want to maybe chat about? Yeah. Yeah, so we have 4 teams. I'm down 1 person, but I have 4 teams. If they're only doing evaluations, they'll do 3 to 4 evaluations. But if I have a team that's only doing follow-ups, and only doing follow-ups, and like maybe they're read and write follow-ups, not equipment follow-ups, I'll do them over Zoom now, and I'll do one every half an hour. So like on those days, like that team sees maybe 12 teams. But if it's, so I would say somewhere between like 3 and 7 per team, and then we're running 4 teams. So, but, and I still always kind of feel like I'm behind on follow-ups, like always. But we just have a lot of kids, so. Oh, sorry, go ahead. So for the evaluation, so I feel like our evaluation is actually really, really standard for us, like the way we run them, the questions we ask, the information we get, and the format. I was thinking, I was like, I could do a whole session just on how to run an evaluation, but the part that we don't do that's real standard is like trials of equipment. Like we don't like do equipment trials with the kid to be like, how do you respond to this? How do you respond to this? Like we don't do that part. It's more of a conversation. But so, but yeah, we just I'll come back to that eval form and we can talk about that a little bit more. So these are some of the email templates. So I just keep it basic. Who's the contact people, who the eval's for. And I hate just assigning them a time, but really I don't have any other choice. I just tell you, look, we're coming at this day. A lot of times I'm like, we only have 2 days a month. Usually they're pretty forgiving, but I always tell them, if you have a problem, just let me know and we'll reschedule. But I just tell them, we're coming at this day on this time. And then I always, on this spot right here, I always write the teacher's name and tell them to notify the parent. And it's like silly and simple, but if I just write a general email to 2 people, oh, I thought you were going to call the parent. It's like, oh, they thought I was going to call the parent. So sometimes like being real specific is like, so the teacher, I'm like, I need you to call the parent and I need you to reserve a room for us to meet in and things like that. So this is our template for just the evaluation. And then I have one for like a Zoom eval, and then like our follow-ups. Anyways, our follow-up one's similar. Just says, hey, we're coming to you for a follow-up, or we're gonna have a Zoom meeting with you for a follow-up for this kid. Yeah. Yes, so we do it twice a month. Yeah, and then in May, the first AT day in May, we'll still do evaluations, we'll still run meetings. The second AT day in May, we pick up all of our equipment, and I won't pass out equipment like a week before that. But if it's the beginning of May, I'll let them have 2 weeks with the equipment. And then, but if it gets to be like the 3rd week of May, I'm like, we're picking it up next week. So then I don't deliver more. But we don't have a cutoff for referrals. We used to have an administrator who said we could say, this is the deadline, but now we don't ever say you can't turn in a referral. But I do tell people, based on the time of year it is, we won't get to you until the fall. So a lot of the summers, I'll have like half a dozen carryover referrals that we'll evaluate in the fall. But yeah. Mm-hmm. Um, so technically, we're not supporting IEP goals. They're not really supposed to keep the equipment over summer, but if the student takes the equipment home, I'm not going to take it. So if students have summer school, if they go to ESY, then, and they don't take it home, then I'll pick up the equipment in the spring and take it to the ESY teachers and then pick it up after ESY. But if we have a student who takes the equipment home and uses it functionally and we trust the family, then I'll let them keep it. And I keep like on my follow-up database, I just have a column that says kept for summer. And then I'll email all of those parents one email and just blind carbon copy them and just say, hey, you're keeping equipment for summer. This is my email. Let me know if something happens or you need something. And then I just email the teachers of those kids early in the fall. And I'm like, they kept over the summer. Can you make sure it's coming to school? So I don't think I'm technically supposed to, but I'm not going to pull it. Yeah, so if it's a communication student, their SLP is generally there, so we'll talk with them. But yeah, it will have all of their like speech and language testing that's in their file. That will be in that preliminary information, so we'll look at that. It's just usually not, that testing is usually not real specific to like assistive technology. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, if we decide, so if we're in an eval, we're like, hey, let's try a Go Talk 20, we put it in place and they're like, you know what, they're pushing the buttons, they understand the association between the word, the button, the reinforcer, like they're getting it, like we want to expand and maybe it's only been 2 weeks, it's like, all right, let's go to an iPad. Like that would be the next step. So then we'll go out and swap equipment. So, and we always tell the teams, like, I'll follow up with you at this time, but just call us anytime. Like you can always call and say, hey, this isn't working, let's get together. And then I usually can throw them on the next team day agenda and stuff. So we're always able to kind of adjust as needed. Okay, equipment. So that is kind of the basics of getting a referral, running an evaluation, follow-ups, and then the follow-up document or the follow-up process is just ongoing. Some kids, I just see them once a year. Some kids, I don't talk to their teacher. I talk to the student. You know, like if I have 504 kids, I just talk to the kid. I drop it off in the fall. We've done it for 5 years. I'll pick it up in the spring. So some kids don't hardly need any attention. And then there's kids in teams where we've been out like 7 times, you know? So we just kind of follow up as needed. So that, other than talking about equipment and the website that we have, that's kind of the process that we follow for the students and for the team. So is there any questions up to that point? So generally, because we're setting up so many evaluations for one day, I tell the file holder, so usually the teacher, sometimes it's an SLP or an OT, but whoever's the IEP or 504 file holder, I ask them to contact the parents to let them know about the meeting. There's other times I'll call parents, you know, like to help them troubleshoot something, or if they have questions, I'll just call parents. Or we had a kid move in last week from California and they're like, I think he used an iPad. It's like, I'm just gonna call mom. It's like, what did he use? So I'll call him, but when it comes to scheduling all the appointments, I try and have the file holder. They kind of want me to do it often, but I'm like, no, you can take care of that. So, but is there something else? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, generally, if they can't make it and they're okay with us doing it without them, like we'll ask. They're like, oh, I can't make it, but I feel okay not being there. Like, I want you to go ahead and do it without us. That evaluation report, we email to everybody on the team and to the parents. So the parents get a copy of that evaluation report that talks about what did we talk about, what did we consider, what did we decide, and that information. With parents. So we don't do as much with parents as we do with the school. I kind of go back and forth on this. If the student is a AAC user and the equipment's used at home, sometimes we'll have the family come in and like kind of follow up with them. But a lot of times it's like school only equipment, or sometimes it's school only equipment. So then we just follow up with the file holder. If we ever have a concern, then absolutely we'll meet with the family and stuff. But yeah. Yeah. Are they not? Okay, I will do that. Did you try the databases by chance? I double checked that one last night, but I don't think I checked my templates. Okay, I'll double check all of them over lunch. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so I was thinking about this last night. I wanted to share something else with you, but this morning was busy and I didn't get it loaded, but I'll show you real quick before I go. So 2 other things that I do besides kind of managing the team's day-to-day stuff is professional development for the district, and then helping get personal equipment for students. So in about 8 years, I've probably done 4 insurance requests for like Tobii Dynavox eye gaze devices. And I'm not an SLP, so I can't write the evaluation report. So my colleague Jana Lynn does that, but I kind of try and gather all the information. So yeah, so we'll help families go through the insurance process. Such a fun process. So we will do that. But if I have a student who needs an iPad or mid or low tech devices, have you guys heard of the Utah Assistive Technology Foundation? They are great. I requested an iPad not even 6 days ago, and it's already been approved and purchased, and they're cutting the check for the app and stuff. So I think it's Utah State. I'll pull it up and look. But so there's a grant through the Utah Assistive Technology Foundation. It's only $500, but it will pay. So that will kind of buy a lower generation iPad, like for around $330 is what the iPad 9s are going for. And then like Prolo's $250, so you might be a tiny bit over 500, and then we'd ask the family to buy a case for the iPad. That's what this situation did. And then, but if they're doing like TD Snap, it's only $50, so you can easily stay under the $500 and stuff. But then if you wanted to go talkable switches, Big Macs, cause effect toys, those would all be under $500. So you could still get those pieces of equipment funded. And I've probably done the grant about 5-6 times. I like to try and provide equipment from the district or from my UAT equipment for the team. I try to provide the student with our equipment up until they graduate, unless there's another reason. That way I can kind of always provide them with good updated equipment rather than buying a preschooler an iPad right now, and then they'll need a new iPad maybe in 5 or 6 years. I'll provide it, but when the student's about to exit this school system, so a lot of our post-high or our graduating students, usually that last year will provide it until then, and then we help them find their own equipment, unless it's a eye gaze, high-tech eye gaze, then we go through insurance right away. But yeah, so this program will offer, I think, like 3 to 5 per month is what they have available. So this is the website. It's the Utah Assistive Technology Program and this grant. It is low income based, but if you have a student who like gets SSI and they're over 18, you can just put their income, not their household income. So then they kind of qualify a little easier. And this gal, Shelly, she's great to work with. And this program is really, really slick and so easy, especially compared to insurance. Oh, when you asked about all of the kids who are exiting, so if the family uses the equipment, so if the student has had an iPad with a dynamic display program for a long time, they're successful at school, but the family's always been like, nope, we're okay at home, which that happens often, then I won't have that equipment purchased. So it's usually only if there's been equipment going home that the family relies on, and we need to make sure they have that before they exit the system because they won't have access to granted equipment. Okay, so I was gonna talk a little bit more about equipment, and then I was gonna show you my website. So equipment, I use a program called FileMaker. It's a software package that was here before I came in, and it's what I check in and check out all my equipment to. So if you have equipment from UAT, you'll have your T letter numbers. So I just use FileMaker to check in, check out all of my equipment so I can easily like look up what equipment a student has. And then the other thing I was going to talk about with equipment is drop off and pickup. So we pick up all of our equipment unless they're keeping it for summer. Like usually it's the second to last week of school. There are outliers who are like, no, I need it to the last day. And then I work an extended contract, so I'll go like after school's out and pick it up. But our last AT team day in May, the team will go out and we all go out individually, and I just assign them schools, and we just do like a mass pickup of all of the equipment in all of the schools. They bring it back to Hart-Vixen where my office is. We clean it, label it, inventory it. And then I have these big shelves, and I just have the shelves labeled by school. And whatever school the kid's going to next year, we just put it on that shelf and store it for summer. Prior to us picking up the equipment, I send out emails and paper copies, and it's just called equipment pickup. It says, you have this with this kid. Is it, where are they going next year? Do you need it back? Are there concerns that we need to chat about? And then if they're moving on, what school, who's the file holder? So when we get the equipment back, if it's transitioning from elementary to junior high, we'll tag it with the junior high school and put it on the shelf. And then in the fall, the first 2 weeks of school, and I come back a week early, but the first 2 weeks of school are mostly me just going to schools because my team's not really available. They're all in professional development usually, but I kind of can get out of some of that. So I deliver a lot of equipment just on my own the first 2 weeks of school for returning equipment. So if the student had it before and they're getting it back, then I just return it. If we have students who maybe transition to a different placement over the summer, then on our first AT day, I'll have the team deliver that equipment and do training with the new school staff. And that's all I think for equipment that I was going to talk about. So the next thing I was going to talk about was my website, and I've only had this website maybe 2 years now, and it is a lifesaver. It saves me trips from going to places. I can email people training videos. So I just was going to talk about that, and then that is all I had. If you have any other questions at the end. Oh, for the grant. Oh, that's what this is. Yep. So this is the Granite District Assistive Technology Resources. So we're a Google district, so this is just a Google site, and it is super easy to use. So I'll go through a few of these tabs and show you what I've done. But every time we do an evaluation, at the end of the meeting, we email the team and the family the reports. We also email them links to videos off of this. So if we have a student we decide to do pro loco to go with, then we'll come in here, grab the URL and put it in the email to the school team and to the family so they have these. So we've shown them these things in person, but if you're a new user to these, sometimes they're extremely overwhelming and you've just sat through an hour-and-a-half meeting. So anyways, it's good to come back to these. Majority of these videos are me doing a screen recording on my iPad. So I just record my iPad screen. Go through the process of whatever I'm trying to demonstrate, and then I just talk over it. So in this Prolo folder, I have like editing buttons, navigating, setting up profiles, using the search feature. And I load these to YouTube and then link them is the easiest way I've found to get these videos on. Typing, using AirDrop to transfer an iPad profile or a Prolo profile. And then we have TD Snap, similar videos, navigating, editing, LAMP, and Cough Drop. Cough Drop, I kind of stole most of their videos. Cough Drop has a pretty extensive YouTube library, so I've just kind of pulled in the basic editing, navigating from there, and then I also just linked it to their YouTube page, which they said was fine. Yeah, you guys can have this. And you can take my videos. They're not very impressive, but you can have them. It's just never fun to listen to yourself. And it's very, very challenging to record these videos at Hart-Vixen School. I don't know if you don't know what that is. It's a school for severe kids in Granite, K through 22. So the whole school is severe special ed. They're a little noisy sometimes, and I live down the elementary hall, and so it's like trying to find a time when they're not screaming or there's not announcements. So that's why they're so short, it's because I got to get it in. But anyways, so I'm not going to go into this because it's kind of loading quite slowly, but We have all the communication apps at the top, and then like the GoTalk, I had people like I was gonna give it to somebody, but I wasn't able to make physical contact with the person using it. So I just recorded myself on my webcam, like showing somebody how to use it, turn it off, turn it on, how to record, things like that. And then I also record my screen on my Chromebook to make other videos. There's videos on how to load read and write, how to use read and write, how to use SnapType. Cami is a free, or no, Cami's not, I don't think it's free, but our district purchased Cami licenses for our whole district. So even though it's not something like I pay for and assign out, every kid has it. We recommend it a lot. So there's videos for Cami, voice typing in Google Docs. Sometimes that's like the whole referral is just for needing voice typing. So it's like, hey, why don't you take a look at this and let me know if you feel like we need to go through the referral process. There's some videos on iPads, like how to restrict websites, how to put it into guided access, some just basic iPad things. And then I have this tab takes you to another page where it's just pictures of equipment. So like say we're talking about a Talkable 2 and they're like, I have no idea what that is. Or sometimes if they look at it, then it's easier to see. And then down at the bottom, I have all of my paperwork. So I have the referral, permissions to test for IEP versus 504, our data sheets, the consideration document, and then I have links to testing accommodations from USBE and a link to the AT or the UAT manual. So this is really helpful because I'll have people and they're like, I can't figure out how to edit this. And like a couple years ago, I'd be like, okay, I'll come by. So it saves me a ton of time just sending somebody a video. Like I had a mom, she's like, I can't get read and write on our laptop at home. It's like, are you signed into his account? It's like, check these things. It's like, okay. So I just send them videos and it saves a lot of time and they're pretty helpful. So, all right, that's everything I had. Does anybody else have anything they want to chat about or have any questions? All right, well, I'll stick around for a few minutes if you want to come up and chat about anything else. Is there anything over there? No?
The only thing we had was just a link to the resource. Was everything under schedule?
Yeah, everything's under schedule. I do need to change those permissions, and I'll do that in just a sec. But other than that, we're good. Okay. Yeah. In Sketch. Yeah, so there's links in the PowerPoint, but I'll put that under these documents. Yep. Yep, and email me anytime or we can chat. I know I've done some like Zoom visits and stuff with a few other teams and stuff. So if you ever want to chat, even though I've done this and I do this full time. So that's like, Granite's really lucky. And it took a long time of a lot of people fighting really hard to be able to have a full-time person at Granite. Before we had a full-time person, Julia did this like part-time, you know, so it's like, it's a blessing that we're able to do it full time. So I know I can't imagine how hard it is to do for if you have another caseload and stuff. But if you ever want to chat, let me know. I know I want to go out and spend days with some of the other full-time AT folks in the other districts and see how they do things and stuff. So if you ever want to come hang out or chat, just let me know. So, all right, thanks guys.